And we are live. Hey guys, what's happening? Nice to see everyone here. Different venue, different time slots. So perhaps the usuals won't necessarily pop up tonight, but that's okay. I'm here because I wanted to do an evening show. An evening show which we don't do often enough. I know a lot of people out there participate in the live Sunday shows, which are usually Sunday mornings. But I know a lot of people out there, are busy Sunday mornings, don't necessarily have the time to wake up that early and be able to jump in on the show. So I thought it would be nice for me to try and do an evening show. And hopefully some of you out there that are night owls and not necessarily going out on a Saturday night, you have nothing interesting to do, you drop by and we can talk gear. So it's always fun for me to see guys here. I'll say hi to the people that are already here today. We have a few people in the house, and some people have dropped comments saying that, they're going to be going out tonight, not available. That's fine. They can always catch the rerun. So Gene mentioned that he'd be going out for dinner, and it's 4 p.m. in California, so he's not available, but that's okay. He at least let us know about that. Music and Gear says, wow, my Logify just 7 hours ago, and I thought I was crazy seeing a Saturday night show. So basically, he's hopefully going to participate. Music and Gear's going to participate in the event tonight. My Logify says he's first. Gene says he's getting his coffee and he's going to be right back. Casey Lee is here. Music and Gear is here. Time Surfing Alien. Good evening to everyone, he says. Wayne McConnell says, hi, fellas. Hi, Wayne. How are you, man? Nice to see you. And Jeff says, hi, Tony and fellow addicts. I can't join today. It will be 3 a.m. here. Good luck with the show. Did you buy that Royalist yet? I bought a Strandberg this week, and I'm floored about how good it is. So, Jeff, if you're going to be watching this later on, I can answer that question for you. I haven't bought the Royalist yet. No. I actually was intending to go and check out that amplifier. Last Sunday I mentioned that on the show, and for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm pretty attracted to a new amplifier that I spotted out in the wild called the King Royalist Mark III. Really interesting amplifier in many different regards, specifically the way it's made, the way it sounds. I'm a big Marshall fan, for those of you that don't already know. And this amplifier really does 3 different Marshall flavors in one amplifier. And is able to do like the JCM 45 all the way to the super lead. And the unique thing about this amplifier is it does have 2 attenuators, which you can use so that you actually can have, let's say, 2 different sounds, 2 different era Marshall tones, and you can crank the heck out of it and not necessarily blow yourself away. So I mentioned that last week I was going to go out and take a look and try one of these because somebody, a shop not too far from me, had one of them in stock. Unfortunately, when I contacted them and said, hey, I want to come by and take a look, they just sold it. So the next batch of inventory is going to only come in, I'm assuming at about, they mentioned 5 to 8 weeks. So at least, a month and a half, 2 months down the road. Well, in a way it's good. It gives me the time to think about it and carefully, make sure it's the right decision for me because it's not an inexpensive amplifier. So we'll see. But I do definitely want to try it out and play it before I actually pull the trigger on it. I wouldn't necessarily just order it without trying it because it is an expensive amp. So that answers that question. Let's say hi to the rest of the guys here. John ZD351 is here. He says, hey Tony, loving this time slot. Noon Saturday here in Melbourne instead of later later midnight or after midnight. So I'm glad you can join us. Yeah, it's good. It's good to be able to attract the people that can't usually tune in on Sunday mornings. Nice to see you. Let's see here. Gene says he's back. He had fish and chips. So Gene's going to be burping fish and chips while he's watching the show, which is all good. Alex2112 says, hey, Tony, love the show, love this time. Wish you could do this time every Saturday. Yeah, I mean, I can't do a Saturday night show and a Sunday morning show back to back. I would run out of things to talk about probably, but, you know, maybe now and then I'll mix it up like this and just be able to, you know, give people a chance to tune in later at night. Guitar Vacation says, whoa, Uncle Tony hanging on Saturday night. Yeah, indeed. So you guys know the drill. If anybody wants to ask questions, the platform is open. That's why we do this, to have an opportunity to have a little bit of a dialogue back and forth. So if any of you have any gear-related questions, feel free to jump right in. If you put a question mark before you type your question, I'll know it's geared to me. Otherwise, we'll assume it's geared to everybody that's here today. So today's show 216. So we're getting up there, guys. I feel like, you know, it's funny how every time there's a live stream that comes up, I always get a little anxious because I'm like, what am I going to talk about today? You know, I don't have that much lined up, or there's not, you know, anything too crazy that's happened lately or whatever. But still, we always find some good topics to discuss, but definitely love, you know, the back and forth. So if you have questions, please feel free. Of course, if you want to support the channel, you can do that in many different ways. Primarily, you want to subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, you definitely help us out. We help the channel grow. And at the same time, you know, there's always swag that you can grab, or you can do a super chat or whatever. But most importantly, it's the participation. I think it's very important for us to grow the community and participate. So that's it. Let's see who else is here today. I'm just scrolling down the list. Hopefully we'll see some faces that we don't usually see on the weekend, on Sunday. So Vox Guitars Rock is here. Jamel's here also. Hey, Jamel, nice to see you. Paul McNary, nice to see you here, Paul. Let's see here. John is just too loud is here. Hey, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today. See, it's always nice to be able to have a different time slot, so you don't, you know, you get a chance to see friends that you don't always see. John is out to church, she says. He's heading off to church. So maybe you want to say one for me, John, while you're there. I'm playing this guy, Tokai, Love Rock, Japan. And I'm playing, usually I play through my FM9, but today I'm not playing through my FM9. I decided to go hardwired. I'm actually going into the Princeton behind me there, so it's a little bit loud, but I don't know if you're gonna actually hear it that well, because it's about, I don't know, a good 6-7 feet away from me, and it's being picked up by the mic here. So you tell me if it's too loud, guys, because I turned it down. It might be clipping, might be a little bit too loud, but you know what? I'm super happy with this Princeton reverb. This is the Princeton that I built. I basically built it myself. And I think you guys remember I had done a series of videos on it. And the first hand-wired amp I ever put together on my own. And I was hesitant to, you know, I was a little nervous about it, to be honest with you, because, you know, there's enough power that runs through this thing. You can kill yourself if you're not careful. But basically, it turned out really, really good, and I love playing through this thing. It's definitely loud enough to play in this small room, and you know, pumping a little overdrive or something through it with a little bit of reverb is so nice, especially with humbuckers. You know, I really do dig it. So I'm really happy that I did it, and I learned a lot. Alex likes the Zozo truss rod cover. Yeah, that was a little touch I put on this myself, because I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan, I'm a big Jimmy Page fan, and this guitar really, honestly guys, I mean, I'm playing this most of the time. Even though I have some Gibson guitars, there's just something about this Tokai, and it's like, you know, people often look at it and say like, oh, it's a Tokai, it's not a real Gibson or anything like that. But I mean, in terms of tone and playability, it just sounds great to me. And I'll just put in the rhythm pickup here. I can't really play too loud. That's only not all the way up on the volume because it is late and there are people in the house right now, so I don't want to necessarily annoy the wife that much, but so I'll put a little lower. But you put the right drive pedal in front of the Princeton, and it gives you have enough bite and clarity. John says, tell him your Gibsons are not real Tokais. You could always look at it that way. So how are you guys doing? What's new on your end? On the other side of the camera? I know that everybody's here to hear me talking, but I like to start the conversation by asking you guys what you've been up to and what you're looking at. I think some of you are looking at some new gear. Gene mentioned the new Germanium Tumnus Deluxe pedal. So came and sold out before anyone could buy one. Yeah, they're really popular. I have the Tumnus Deluxe, not the Germanium version, but I'm not surprised that they're quite popular. I don't have mine within arm's reach here, but or else I would show it to you. But they're great pedals. I like mine. I like mine a lot. There's a lot of hype around the Tumnus because, you know, it's supposed to be a clone, and everybody and their sister or brother are making clones these days. If you're making a pedal, I think most people are using a clone or offer a clone version, which is great because they're very popular. But you don't necessarily have to buy into the hype because there's a lot of very expensive copies out there. And I mentioned this before. I'll show you again. I also, when I built the Princeton, I also built one of these. This is a Ghost Drive from StewMac, which is basically StewMac's take on a clone. Not an expensive kit. It's fun to build. I built this in a couple of hours, and it sounds fantastic. And I put this up against other clones that I have, like this one. I did a video shootout. So there's this one. This is a clone as well. This is made by a company called 68 Pedals. Very well-known builder. Good quality stuff. I put these two together, compared them, and I also put it against the Wampler Tumnus Deluxe. So if you guys are interested in hearing that shootout, you can check out my videos and you can see which one you prefer. You might be surprised. I was, and I'm usually playing this one with the Princeton. Really works well, I gotta say. It's a nice clear sound. Doesn't get overly saturated, but it pushes the amp really nicely. So it sounds more like a natural you know, more of a natural push. You guys are asking me what I'm playing, what pedal I'm using in front of the Princeton. It's the Hot Summer Overdrive. It's made by a company in China. It's called Amumu or Amumu, A-M-U-M-U. You may have heard of them, maybe not. I'm trying it out. I'm actually quite I'm pleased with it, at least with the Princeton. It sounds really good. And for those of you wondering, I'm going to be doing kind of a little blitz soon on a whole bunch of pedal reviews because I'm really backlogged. There's so many pedals that I wanted to review and I didn't have time to do, and I really want to do that because I've been focusing on gear reviews and product reviews and not so much on the pedal reviews. So I want to jump back into that. I think you guys do enjoy those type of videos. So I'm going to start rolling them out on a regular basis. So you'll be able to see quite a few different pedals that I have here that I'm going to be playing for you guys as well. Guitar Vacation says, made in Japan is as authentic as anything the lawsuit Happy Guitar Corporation is doing. Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, if you land on a good guitar, regardless of where it's made, you know it's a good guitar. You know, like you can get a great guitar that's made in the US, you can get a fantastic guitar that's made in Canada, made in Japan, Korea, or other places. You don't have to necessarily be hung up on where it's made as long as it's made properly. I think you could enjoy a guitar no matter what. I love these guitars, and you know they're made in Japan. Yes, the craftsmanship is great. The build quality is fantastic. It just feels so good. It's one of those things where you know the guitar speaks to me. So I usually grab this first before I grab my Gibson Les Paul, and I have more than one. So that I guess that says a lot. Because I'm pretty picky when it comes to guitars. So what else have you guys been up to? What have you grabbed? What are you playing through? Anything new? Any new gear? Hey Martin, how's it going? Martin Cloutier's here. Nice to see you. What are you guys playing or planning on getting? Anything new? Any new guitars? Buying or selling? I like to hear what's going on your end because there's always stuff going on my end. That's no surprise, but I want to hear about you. And, you know, we were talking about the made in Japan guitars and, you know, being authentic. And, you know, whenever we talk about authentic or authenticity when it comes to guitars, we always, you know, we tend to talk about Gibson because Gibson has been at the forefront of this play authentic marketing blitz that they've done. What's interesting is recently, you know that there was a lawsuit happening between Gibson and Dean guitars. If you guys are following that, you probably know what I'm talking about. Gibson was suing Dean for some models that they felt were a little bit too close to the Gibson models. Well, there was a lawsuit that was going on for a long time, and what's interesting is not long ago, about a week ago or so, I heard that Dean they won their appeal against Gibson because apparently they had lost and then they appealed and now they won their appeal. So basically what's happening, and I could read the actual post that Dean put out when I saw this. They said that Dean Guitars is proud to announce a significant legal victory in its long-standing trademark dispute with Gibson brands. The U.S. Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit has ruled in favor of Dean Guitars by granting a full reversal and new trial, vindicating the company's position that its long-standing use of certain guitar models does not infringe on Gibson's trademarks. The court held that evidence of countless other companies making these guitar models must be allowed to be shown in court. So they mentioned they're incredibly pleased with the court's decision, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to be, you know, continuing, I guess, the court battle. But what's interesting is that they did seem to at least be vindicated in the sense that they won their appeal. So it's going to be interesting to follow and see what's going to happen, and maybe hopefully, the small company will win once in a while, because everybody knows Gibson has the power to push around the smaller companies. I'm happy that Dean is standing their ground. They're not just saying, okay, we're going to just roll over and do what you want. So maybe this will start a trend. And I think having competition is good. I think it's good for Gibson in the sense that they could hopefully put out better models, maybe newer models instead of just rehashing the same old stuff over and over again. Create something new, And I believe in healthy competition. We end up benefiting from all that. If there's no competition, basically prices skyrocket, everything seems the same, and you don't have any big, changes in the industry. Whereas if you have competition, people have to think outside the box, Music and Gear says it's easier to list the companies Gibson is not after in the court system. It's true. I can't dispute that. Music and Gear has a good point. Gibson is going after a lot of different companies. There was a period that it seemed like every week there'd be a new story as to, Gibson suing somebody or trying to, entice a company to stop making certain models or whatever. So we'll see how it goes. Guitar Vacation says, rest in peace, Fernandez. Yeah, I heard about that story too. Great ones on the used market. Didn't they make Made in Japan Bernies too, or am I mixed up? I'm not sure if they were making Bernies. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I do know that they were making some nice models. They had a few different Strat copies that were out early on. I had some friends that had them. They were pretty decent guitars, I gotta say. And yeah, you probably could still find them on the used market, probably for not much money. So yeah, it's as I was saying, it's nice to have competition. Unfortunately, like in this case, sometimes companies don't survive, unfortunately. But it seems like there's new guitar companies popping up every day, especially overseas. And some of the competition coming in from overseas is quite interesting, to say the least. So Music and Gear says, yes, they made Bernie. Okay, so I stand corrected. I wasn't sure about that. Bernie has a good reputation. A lot of people like the Bernie guitars. They're well sought after. A lot of people, they fall into the same category as Tokai, as Edwards, and Bernie. Usually those three brands are usually mentioned at the same time. Casey Lee says, I was on my way to visit my mom today and stopped at a yard sale. They had a first act Garage Master VW guitar, VW gig bag, and the strap that is made out of a a seat belt material. $26. I had to buy it. Interesting, man. Is that for you, or is it for a gift? One of your kids, maybe? Or maybe a project guitar, project build? That's pretty cool. How many of you out there scope out the quirky guitars? Like something out of the ordinary, like Casey Lee just brought up. I keep my eyes open for anything weird. Some wacky guitars. So Vox Guitars Rock says, hi everyone, just back from walking the dogs. Hope everyone is doing good. Hey, I'm doing okay. I hope the dogs enjoyed their walks. Got to keep the dogs happy. Our furry friends. Time Surfing Alien says, my son found a first act Strat in the trash. A new set of tuners, strings, and saddles. Got a player. Yeah, man. With a little TLC, those guitars could be a good platform for who knows what, Throw in some crazy stuff in there. and you got a player, like you said. So Gene says Orville. Yeah, Orville. That's right. Another brand. So John says all the big companies are the same. If it's more cost effective to sick on the lawyers, then do the right thing. They will. It's business. I've heard of people getting screwed over by other companies too. Yeah, I mean, business unfortunately has the dark side as well. You know, most of the time it's a lot easier for companies to grow through acquisition than through attracting good employees, intelligent people that could take the time to turn the brand around, or perhaps, you know, create something new, something different in the market. It takes a lot of R&D. It takes a lot of money to do that. And a lot of companies are just willing to not like skip over that, just buy a company. You know, we saw Gibson buy Mesa Boogie, and I'm still waiting to see what Mesa Boogie is going to come out with next, because I'm curious to see if they're going to come out with something different, or if it's, you know, same as usual, business as usual. I hope it would be nice to see something new, something a little different come out from that Mesa Boogie, because a lot of this stuff is the same, but it's been pretty quiet since the acquisition, so I'm a little nervous. I know Gibson came out with their amp, which didn't impress me much, and I feel like it was kind of a flop because I don't hear too many people talking about it. You know, there was a little hoopla when it first came out, briefly, you know, a few videos popped up. Since then, I haven't seen that many videos of people that actually own the amplifier that went out and bought it. I felt it was expensive and honestly didn't sound that great. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys, anybody here has one of those guitars, let me know. Maybe I'm wrong. Dwight Bailey's here. Hey, how's it going, Dwight? Hey, your little image in your little avatar is pretty freaky. With the laser eyes. Dwight says, great looking Les Paul. Unfortunately, it's not a Les Paul, or maybe fortunately, it's not a Les Paul. It's a Tokai. Actually, we were just talking about that a couple of minutes ago, Dwight. I'm actually playing it through my Princeton reverb here, and digging it. I usually don't have the luxury of playing a loud amplifier at 10:30 at night. So my wife, bless her heart, is very patient. I was playing it earlier on, but it was a little earlier. So I'm not going to play it too much tonight because it's getting late and there's people in the house. But I'm enjoying that Princeton immensely, as well as this Tokai. Jack is here. Jack says, hello everyone, I'm from Louisiana. Hello Tony. Hello Jack. Nice to see you. Mesa released the Mark, 7, but it's so expensive. Yeah, but you know, the Mark 7 is kind of still based on the Mark 5. Like, it's still the same platform. I agree with you, it's very expensive. So I'm looking for something new. Like, I'm hoping they're going to come up with a new amp. Something a little bit more, you know, different from what they've already been doing. Mesa has this formula. I've owned Mesa amps, many of them, many different ones. But their amps are consistently the same in the sense that they're a little bit overly complicated for nothing. There's a lot of push-pull, a lot of switches, a lot of different, you know, channels and whatnot. The only one that I owned that wasn't complicated was the Electrodyne, because it was basically it basically didn't have multi-channels. It had just 3 stages of gain. So there was like, you know, straight, low gain, high gain. But it was basically more of a Marshall style amp. And probably one of my favorite Mesa amps that I've tried. And I've tried quite a few. Electrodyne was one of them. I had the Mark III for a while there. That was a crazy loud amplifier. I had the Stiletto for maybe like 42 hours before I got rid of it. That thing was so harsh and spiky I couldn't deal with it. What else did I have from Mesa Boogie? I had the Triple Crown, which was a good amplifier overall, but it did have a little bit of too much fizz. Didn't sound as open as I would have hoped. And what else? I had the Mesa Boogie, the special combo amp as well. Quite a few. And I mean, I give Mesa Boogie the benefit of the doubt. Every time they come up with something new, I try it. But it's always not quite what I'm after. Sometimes I bite, but I end up eventually selling them. I'm more of a Marshall guy, and there's quite a difference between the Marshall tone and the Mesa tone. Vox says Gibson will advertise Play Authentic Mesa ads. Yeah, maybe they'll start doubling up. I don't know. Guitar Vacation says, Tony, I know you have the Brunetti, and I thought one or two other Marshall types. What's got you guessing on the Tone King? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't actually, you know, I had kind of made up my mind that I was going to get the Friedman Plex. I'm a big Marshall guy. I like the Marshall sound, and I think Friedman makes really good amplifiers. He basically puts out amplifiers that sound like the recorded version of the Marshall tone. So like the Dirty Shirley that I have behind me has that tone, like it has that recorded Marshall tone. So it's hard to get that tone in real life, but through miking and post-processing, when you're recording a Marshall, you can get that tone, but it's got to be pretty loud. So he's figured out a way to kind of get that tone at lower volumes. He has a really good master volume on his amplifier, and generally they're very well made. He's got a great ear for tone. So when he announced the Plex, I was all in. I was like, you know, this is basically a sonic recreation of one of his favorite vintage Marshall amplifiers. It's got to be good. And when I started hearing the demos on YouTube and whatnot, the people that were playing that amplifier and weren't using an aux to do the recording sounded really good. The people that were using an aux to emulate the cabinet and whatnot, you can definitely tell that they were doing it that way. And I wasn't getting that real tone coming through in the video. Anyway, I was pretty convinced that that was the amp that I wanted to buy. So I had kind of made up my mind. But then I stumbled on a video of another great guitarist on YouTube, one of my favorite guitarists of all time. And this guy should definitely be more famous than he is. But Greg Koch, if you guys don't know Greg, check him out. He's got a YouTube channel. He's done video reviews for other companies and stores. But he plays in a trio. And he throws up videos every once in a while where they're just jamming, playing together. And I was watching one of the videos and I said, man, the tone in that video is so good. Like, what is he playing? And as luck would have it, he mentioned the amp that he was using. And it's funny because he's got his own signature amp. And he wasn't using it. He was using the Tone King Royalist 3. And I thought, man, that thing sounds amazing. And then I watched another video of him where they were playing live, like it wasn't in a room, it was actually in a small venue, club or something like that. And again, the sound was amazing. So then I started going through a bunch of videos, trying to watch any video I could on the King Royalist 3, and they all sounded fantastic, especially the ones where they were playing them like loud, you know, the louder the better. So I started looking at that. I'm like, maybe the Plex is not the amp that I need, because I already have the Studio Vintage behind me from Marshall. And if you guys tried one, or you know, are familiar with it, you know that it does a really great job. It's a fantastic amplifier, and it's plenty loud. There's nothing lacking in terms of volume with that amp, and you can get that, you know, you can get as heavy as you want with that amplifier just by putting a pedal in front of it. So if you do want to get more of a modern sound, you can do it. If you want to get more of a vintage sound, you can do it. And I was listening to the videos on the Plex, and somebody actually did a side-by-side comparison of the Friedman Plex and the Marshall Studio Vintage, and there wasn't a whole lot of difference. Now, honestly, you have to take that with a grain of salt, that comment I just made there, because oftentimes, depending on how you record it, you can make it sound very different. Depending on how you do processing, how you apply the EQ and, you know, compression and whatnot in the recording. But that being said, in that video, there didn't seem to be that much of a difference. So I'm thinking to myself at this stage, I'm like, well, maybe it would be a little too close to what I already have. Since I already have the Dirty Shirley, I have the Studio Vintage from Marshall, I have the Brunetti Plexi Man, and I have a feeling like having another like simple Plexi circuit might be a little bit redundant. Whereas with the Royalist, it seems like there was a wider scope of sounds that could be had. Granted, it's not a cheap amplifier, it's pretty expensive. But I'm just basically gonna follow my gut instinct here, and I'm gonna go try it, and I'm gonna go see whether or not at the end of the day it still speaks to me or not. So that's your answer. It's a little bit of a long answer, but that's the answer. That's how I stumbled on the Tone King. And I encourage you, any of you guys are looking for a really great sounding Marshall style amplifier, to take a look at this. You might be impressed. It might be expensive though, so if you get gas for that one, I'm not responsible for you breaking the bank or breaking your budget. Music and Gear says, my Agnator doesn't sound good until you hit the 105 dB volume in the room. A lot of amplifiers are like that, Music and Gear. You have to get them in the sweet spot. You know, you can't expect, you know, an amplifier to sound good at lower volumes. It's not designed to do that. Even, you know, the Marshall Studio Vintage is the same. Like, it's a loud amplifier, so oftentimes I'm just basically, like, I don't even crack the volume that much because I'm trying to keep it down. But if you play that at, you know, decent volume, it sounds so much better. Same with the Friedman, same with the Brunetti, same with the, you know, the Princeton. They're all the same. You have to get them into the sweet spot, and you know when you're there, because you have that nice tactile feedback under your fingers when you're playing the amp, and you can just coax that feedback out of the note, and, you know, get that sustain and whatnot. It doesn't feel like it's choking, you know. So guys, if you're I know it's still early, we still got some time, we're only 40 minutes in, but please give me a thumbs up if you dig the channel content, you want to support the channel. I would appreciate giving me a thumbs up. It always helps the algorithm. If you like the time slot, let me know. And don't be shy to ask questions, guys, all right? Because I'll get to your question. A lot of people like to lurk. They just hang out in the background, which is fine, but it's nicer to have a conversation. If you're close to your keyboard and you have a question, then don't hesitate. John says, who in the house that doesn't want to hear a loud amp? You are hanging around with the wrong people, Tony. Yeah, well, in my house, it's mostly the wife that doesn't want to hear loud amps at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday, you know. But I'm not complaining, because she's put up with a lot. I can guarantee you that. Gene says, Tony, I have 3 guitars I bought from eArt that were told not to produce. A Gem, a Les Paul Supreme, and an Ibi AZ type guitar. So who told them that they weren't supposed to produce those guitars? I guess it's because they're a little bit too close to the big name brands. They didn't want to rock the boat, so to speak. I like the stuff that eArt or Art. I don't know how to pronounce these things, guys. I have one right over here, a couple of them. I find that they're very good. They were at least very good quality while the prices were lower. Now the prices seem to have gone up quite a bit. I guess, you know, when the cat's out of the bag, people are interested in buying them. I guess demand goes up and so does the price. But they were a good snag when they first came out, and I'm glad I got a couple of them. You know, I'd love to see new models coming out from them. Vox says, last time the police stopped by my house, it was 2 a.m. Thankfully, I was up playing my cranked Marshall stack, so they didn't wake me up. I think my neighbors kind of know like what to expect at this stage in the game from me. Even though I'm playing inside, they have made comments in the past, just letting me know that they can hear me from outside. So when I play loud, I play pretty loud. Dwight Bailey says, I got a few Marshalls, 1/2 stacks, and a few Fender Vibro King tube amplifiers. So why do you have a few of them? Like specifically the Vibro King. You have, if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're indicating that you have a couple of different versions or of the same one. Like, why would you buy more than one version of the same amp? If I'm understanding correctly there, Dwight, maybe I'm misunderstanding how you've typed your message, but I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy the multiples of the same amplifier. I like to have a little bit of variety. I'll buy similar ones, amps that sometimes sound the same as other ones, or can overlap some of the tones, but I won't necessarily go out and buy like 2 Studio Vintage Marshall heads. I like it, but I don't like it that much. I'd rather spend my money on something a little different. Danielle says, for that old early Gibson amp sound, I keep thinking of the vintage 47 VA 185G. That's close to the old Gibson EH 185. The GZ34 rectifier, 6SN7 inverter, 6 SQL new old stock metal jacket preamp, and 2 6L6 GTs. Well, I was talking about how Gibson came out with that amplifier, the old early Gibson sound. I find like the new version of that Gibson sound, to me, didn't really do it. And maybe they're cutting corners, I don't know. But I'm not really sure, because I can't say that I've actually played the old Gibson amps. So I really don't have a gauge to see whether or not it sounds the same or not. But it's just that it's not the flavor I was going for. Casey Lee says, Greg K is one of my favorites. He's a monster on the guitar. He can make everything sound good, you know. Music and Gear, I highly recommend you check it out, the Tone King. Yeah, do it. Just watch a couple of videos. It's Gristle time. And he's funny too. That's what I really like about Greg. He's funny. He's a little wacko, you know. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he can play everything, man. It's incredible. That guy's got such a repertoire of licks and stuff. It seems like he can just play anything. Yeah, you know, I know what you're saying, Danielle, regarding the guitars. the active pickups, rechargeable batteries. I'm not into that kind of thing. I don't necessarily, I don't know, I don't find like I'm lusting to have an active pickup in my guitars. I'm not missing whatever the active pickups are offering. I'm pretty happy with the standard, old technology. I'd rather not have to have a battery compartment carved into my guitars, and like you said, have a battery that needs to be recharged or replaced every so often. I'm good with the standard technology, but some people love the active pickups. They're just I think the last time I was actually interested in maybe looking at the active pickups was when David Gilmour had switched over to the EMGs. I don't know if you remember that. He had a couple of guitars where he was rocking EMG active pickups. And that was like a blip on the radar for me briefly, but I never really got into it. Dwight says, I got a Friedman BEOD pedal I put in front of my Marshall amp and it sounds great. Well, it's definitely one way to push the Marshall, for sure. Vinny wants to know, are you moving the show to this time slot from now on? Probably not, Vinny. Probably not. I mean, I'm doing it today as like a different test just to see, what the traction is later at night. I see we're not getting as many people on the late night show, and I understand why. I mean, it's Saturday. A lot of people have things, have events, get-togethers, whatnot. I tried to put it later so that if people have things during the day, they could still tune in. But we're probably getting half the viewers on Saturday evening as opposed to Sunday. So probably it'll go back to Sunday, but I might, flip-flop from time to time just to make everybody happy. Gene wants to know, what is the burn-in period when building a new amp? Great question, Gene. I mean, you definitely want to give the amp time to heat up nicely, for the tubes to generate some heat, just to make sure that there's no issues with any kind of cold solder joints. Sometimes with heat, when something gets hot, it expands and it contracts when it cools. You want it to do this a couple of times just to make sure there's no issues. There's no funny smells. There's no smoke. There's no crackling sounds or anything like that. So I would give it, it depends on how long you play the amp in one sitting. But I usually would give it like a couple of weeks even. Like 2 weeks, at least, just to make sure everything is working the way it should. And that's just for the amp. If you're putting in a new speaker, I like to break it in over time as well. So again, it depends on how much you play. If you're only playing a couple of minutes a day, it could take a little bit longer. But if you're playing a couple of hours a day, I would say, 2 weeks should be about right. I don't think there's a golden rule. You kind of just have to go, with your gut when you feel like, you've given it enough time. Hey, Dan, how are you? Dan says, how's it hanging? Mine's hanging a little to the left today. How's it hanging for you, Dan? Oh, man. Vinny's World says eArt actually makes high-end guitars for the PRC market, like 2,000 plus price point. I think the Amazon stuff was mainly to let their name break into the market. It could be. It could be. I haven't seen the more expensive stuff, but they definitely created a buzz with their cheaper stuff. I think everybody today notices when a new brand pops in and are giving you good value for the money. Like if you would want to get the same quality from the same features and type of guitar from a company like Charvel or whatever, you would probably play close to $1,000, you know. And I don't know if you would get that much more. Maybe better pickups, perhaps. But overall, I mean, the guitar is pretty solidly built for an inexpensive guitar. So Dwight says, yeah, 10-4, got a limited edition Vibro King amp and a regular one. Can see them on my channel. Also have a Randy Rhoads 100-watt half stack, limited to 250 for the US. Ah, I see. Okay. So it's not exactly the same amp. So it's a limited edition version and then a regular. Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're going for something that's a little bit more collectible because it is a limited edition, I get that. I get that. John says Gilmour switched to EMGs and still sounded the same. Yeah, I mean, overall his tone is not going to change, you know. I guess EMG probably switched to EMGs, probably just have less noise, a cleaner signal or whatever. But it, you know, his sound is pretty processed. He goes through a lot of stuff, so I don't think it would make that much of a difference to his tone if he would go with EMGs. I'm trying to control my hair with my headphones here. It's messing up my hair. So Danielle says Jonathan Stout has a good comparison video comparing vintage 47 and the old Gibson. Often see Pasquale Grasso using the vintage 47 amp, very similar to the amps Charlie Christian used. I see. I gotta check them out. I'm gonna do my homework and just check them out, just for my own information. I don't see myself ever owning a Gibson amp, but you know, you never know. Never say never. Alex2112 says, are you still having your show tomorrow? I will not have my show tomorrow. No, Alex. I'm doing the show Saturday evening instead of the show tomorrow. So you guys are lucky. The other people are going to have to wait another week. But they can always watch the rerun of this one. So this one's going to be available for them to watch until then. Dan says, I tried playing my guitar today. I got the I suck syndrome today. Ah, that's not good. The I suck syndrome. I get that from time to time. I also get diagnosed with Sigitus disease sometimes. You know, I don't know if you ever get that Sigitus tone. It's pretty bad. Thankfully, it's treatable. All you need to do is treat it with some new gear, and it usually goes away after, you know, a week or so. I can't say we all have, you know, magic in our fingers all the time. Sometimes it feels like we're struggling with our guitars. Sometimes it doesn't. But you got to stick with it, man. I forgot to mention, we lost John Mayall, man. You guys probably heard this. Sad news. If you're an old timer like me, you probably you know a little bit more about John Mayall. I don't think the new guitarists, young guitarists probably know much about him and what he did, what kind of legacy he had. And it's funny because he basically he's been playing music since the 1960s, and he was highly influential in terms of the development of like blues rock. And he was like, in many cases, he was almost like a talent scout. He would, get guitarists that would join his band and eventually go off on their own and do their own thing. A lot of people don't realize this, and it's unfortunate that we lost him. And I gotta say, a friend of mine went to see him play. This goes back quite a few years, probably 20 years ago, if not more, maybe 20, 25 even. And he was playing in a small club, and very humble guy. And my buddy was saying, like, he was basically winding up the cables himself after the gig, doing his own thing. He didn't have like an entourage. He didn't have roadies. He was playing music, I think, more for the sake of enjoying music as opposed to the fame side of things, So yeah, I think Eric Clapton joined the Blues Breakers back in 1965. 65, 66, I think it was. And I think that's, part of the period where a lot of people took notice. And the name John Mayall sort of started to get used a little bit more often once it started to be associated with Eric Clapton, even though John Mayall was doing it before. The famous Beano album, it basically established Eric Clapton. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if he would have achieved the fame that he saw today. Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Alex. I mean, Peter Green, Mick Taylor, Eric Clapton. A lot of people don't realize how many people he influenced. So it was Eric Clapton first. Then after Eric Clapton left, Peter Green stepped in. He played on the album A Hard Road, 67, I believe it was. And then Peter Green went on to form Fleetwood Mac, right? So that was the spin-off there. So Eric Clapton went off and did his thing. Peter Green went off and did the Fleetwood Mac thing. Then Mick Taylor replaced Peter Green, and I think he recorded a couple of albums with him. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was... I don't remember all of the albums, but I think at least Crusade was one of them. And then, of course, we know Mick Taylor joined the Rolling Stones after that. So he went off to do his thing. So it's pretty crazy. A lot of stuff came out because of John Mayall. So I don't know how old he was when he passed away. I don't know if he just passed away of natural causes or if he was sick or I don't have all the details, but it's always sad. It's always sad to see somebody go like that, and I'm sure a lot of people will miss him. I think even Eric Clapton posted a little video, sort of memorial of his own, talking about John Mayall, and I saw it, and he was saying how, he took him under his wings, and he considered John to be like a father figure to him. He kind of showed him the ropes, even though he was at the time more interested in womanizing and taking advantage of substances that he shouldn't necessarily have taken advantage of back in those days. But that's part of the whole thing. So he was 90 years old? All right. Well, hey, man. It's always great to hit 90. Hey, Shane. How's it going, man? We're just talking about the passing of John Mayall. You must have heard by now. Sad day. What can you do? Slowly, all of the greats are slowly disappearing. I don't know how long, it's always, they're dropping quicker than they're being replaced, I think. But anyway. So, did you guys take an opportunity to look at the poll question for today? The poll question was out on my channel in the community section there. If you took an opportunity to take a look at it, it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I thought I was going to have some, a little bit of fun with that. But it was a question that I authentically wanted to have an answer for. So let's take a look at that. And the question was, Would you buy a guitar that played amazingly well despite not being your preferred guitar style or finish? So just to clarify all that. I mean, you know, I think my theory is most of us will probably shop with our eyes before we shop with our ears. And I know a lot of you are gonna challenge me on that. But I think it's true, because when you walk into a guitar center, right, and you're looking at the wall of guitars, now what do you do first? You're looking at it, you're visually looking at the visual appeal of that guitar. So I don't think you're going to necessarily go out and try a guitar if you don't like what it looks like first. It's kind of like women, you know, they gotta please the eyes before you take the time to, you know, stop and talk to them and go a little deeper. You know, I think it's the same with guitars. So if you're not into a guitar style, you know, a shape or whatever, you're probably not going to pick it up, right? You're probably not going to try it. So like, I'm not into like metal guitars. I never was. So I'm rarely going to go into a guitar shop and pick up something that has 7 strings on it and, you know, one of those big fat necks with, you know, a whole bunch of strings that you could down tune to like E flat or something like that, or D or C or whatever it is. Probably not going to do it. There's probably some amazing guitars that are made that way, but chances are I won't pick one up. So I'm like that too. I admit it. I know that, you know, in actual fact, the playability of the guitar, the tone, the feel of the neck, that's really what ultimately really counts. And if, you know, you don't get along with those things, you're never really going to play the guitar anyways. But I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm asking the question. I just want to see what you guys think. So out of the 5 possible answers, let's start off with the most popular, which at 43% is the question, the answer that says yes, playability and sound is everything. We all know that's true. But I still think a lot of us shop with the eyes first. So the second most popular answer is no, if you don't like how it looks, then I don't care how it sounds. And I think a lot of you are being honest. And you know what? I mean, I'm kind of like that too. You know, I agree with both of those things, because honestly, like, even though a guitar sounds amazing, at the end of the day, if you don't like the way it looks, you don't like the way it feels, you're not going to play it all that often. You know, you might pick it up and say, yeah, this guitar actually does like sound pretty good. And it might grow on you eventually, but it's probably going to take quite a bit more time and effort. So that's the second most popular answer, followed by 16% of you said yes, but if I don't like how it looks, it won't get much playtime. So that's just exactly what I just explained. The next most popular answer at 11% is yes, if it sounds great, the rest will grow on me. And this is why I think overall, like, I started to play Telecasters, because originally I didn't like the way Telecasters looked. I didn't think they were cool. You know, I always associated Telecasters with country music. So basically I didn't really take the time to appreciate them. And then when I started playing them, they sounded so darn good that I eventually said, well, screw the look. I can't put this down. It sounds so good. So I ended up really liking Telecasters. And I did the same thing with the SG. I never really liked the SG because of the look of the guitar, the style. I didn't like it. You know, very thin, the horns and all that. It didn't, you know, I was more into Strats or Gibsons at the time, like Les Pauls. So I kind of overlooked them for a long time. Then I started playing them and I'm like, man, this guitar just plays fantastically well. Sounds so good. And it just grew on me. So that's it, you know. I think at the end of the day. And then 4% of you said, nope, I buy with my eyes first and then with my ears. So a few of you were honest and admitted to that. So our own Paul here says, first, I have to like the look. I then see it as structurally sound with a reasonable fit and finish, Next, see how much hardware will get by and if the tuners work and hold their tuning. Then I decide what sounds I have to get covered and could I cover it to that. For example, I do not have a Burns or a Guild or a Dano lipstick tube sound. Would it be practical to put any one or two of them in that guitar? So he's looking at it from a practical standpoint, which I get. I like it. Gene says, no pink guitars, no time, no way. And then Barba Papa says, Rob Chapman once gave some excellent advice on how to choose a guitar. That was that if any guitar does not say play me, don't buy it or you never will play it. If I don't like the look of any guitar, I never buy one. Hence why I don't own any Telecasters or Les Pauls. I just can't stand them. Buy what suits you and don't follow the must-have one crowd on YouTube. So that's good advice. Definitely good advice. Everybody's got a different point of view, but yeah, I can't really argue with that. I think if the guitar doesn't say play me, you're absolutely right. Maybe you should just put it back. You know, there's a lot of whims. A lot of people, there's a lot of things that are being promoted on YouTube. And, you know, I'm at fault since I'm, you know, a YouTuber, I guess you could say, an influencer. So influence could be good or bad, depending on how you're looking at it, right? But I think that there's a lot of fads that come and go, and there's a lot of companies saturating the market with a bunch of products all at the same time. And you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it yourself. So all of a sudden, everybody's talking about this particular brand, this particular guitar, and then it's easy to get caught up in that wave and thinking, oh, if everybody's talking about it, I should be buying one of those, you know. And then you regret it. So I think you should stand your ground, make up your own mind, take the time to think it through, and then make that decision, you know. But going back to the poll, I mean, if, you know, Hello Kitty put out a guitar that played amazingly well and sounded awesome, would you guys buy one? Probably not. You probably wouldn't be caught dead playing a Hello Kitty guitar, right? No matter how good it sounds. So, you know, I'm being honest here, guys. I'm in the same boat. John says, when I was in Sydney, I wanted a guitar to leave at Mom's in Melbourne to jam with when I visited home. I tried all the lefties in the swap shop, and bought a cheap Epiphone Les Paul Special 2 because it played the best. See, sometimes you realize after trying and kissing a lot of frogs that you probably had something good from the get-go. Music and Gear says, Rock Me Pink, PV Vanderberg from 1988. What a guitar. Pink or not? And Danielle says, friend used to have a shop where they had some old Gibson L7s with the removable pickguard mounted pickups. Never liked the look. I now regret not even trying them when I had the opportunity. Well, live and learn, man. We all make mistakes. Oh, man. Vox says, I didn't think I liked pink on a guitar either until I tried a pink Paisley Telecaster. I remember those Paisley Telecasters. I always thought they were pretty cool. I like them. You know, I would probably rock a pink Paisley Telecaster. I'm confident in my manlyhood. I don't mind pink. Speaking of Telecasters, hey, let me show you something, guys. You know, I was talking about building a Jimmy Page Dragon Telecaster. I don't know if you remember me talking about that. My nephew sent me a body that he painted in that Jimmy Page style. Here, let me try and grab that. I got it over here. So this is an ongoing project that I have here. Oh, I can't even. I'm trying not to hit both guitars here. Just want to show you this very briefly here. So I'm off to another project. This is the body that was graciously donated to me from my nephew. It's basically a Telecaster body that he painted and basically reproduced the dragon paint job on it. And he sent it to me. So I decided I'm going to put this guitar together, and I slapped on a neck. As you can see, there's still tape on it. And there's work to be done. It's not as cut and dry. So I like the fact that he painted it by hand. It's not a decal or anything like that. I'm keeping it pretty rough. I'm not going to make this like a super well finished guitar, because the guitar itself, the Jimmy Page version anyways, was stripped and painted. And so I already sprayed a few coats of nitro on this body just to protect the paint, because this paint was, it would be easy to rub off. So I did that, and I put on the guitar neck. I did a fret level and recrown and everything, and it's taped up because I also sprayed the neck to give it a little bit more of a vintage flavor, because it was a little bit pale. And but I realized that it's not going to be a complete copy. It's going to be an homage. It's not going to be identical, and I'm not looking to make an identical copy. I just want a guitar that's going to be a good player's guitar that has this flavor to it. And I already got the pick guard, the clear pick guard. I got the flip-flop or reflective paper that's underneath the pick guard. I found that, got the parts, got the pickups, got the bridge. I decided to use a bridge instead of going with the 3-saddle brass bridges. I'm going with a 6-saddle bridge. I just think it plays better and it has better intonation abilities. The problem with this guitar is that it doesn't have the holes drilled in it, so to have the string ferrules put in. So I'm gonna have to do that. And I didn't think I was going to do that. I thought I was going to have a bottom-loaded bridge. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with the back-loaded. So I'm going to have to drill the holes in this guitar. A little tricky to do. Not always easy. And it's easy to mess up. So I was basically practicing that today. And for those of you who have never tried, I'll put this back here. So for those of you who have never tried to do that, it's not easy to do. I took this scrap piece of wood. You can see the holes drilled here. This is basically what you would see underneath the bridge. So you have the 3 holes at the bottom that hold the screws, right? Then you have the 6 holes that would you would have your strings go through. And then on the back of the guitar, you have to drill the holes to put in the string ferrules, and make sure they're all centered nicely and straight and even, and all this without any special tools. So I basically was practicing on this scrap piece of wood. I think I got it down pretty good. There's a technique you can use to make sure everything is aligned appropriately, because you're basically drilling the holes here first, and then you got to re-drill the bigger holes and make sure everything lines up perfectly like that. Not easy to do, but there is a special way you could do this, and I'm confident I can do it. That's the next step. You have to have a drill press. You can't do it without a drill press box. You can try, but you're never going to get it to look good. And if you have, ADHD, and one of those holes is slightly off, it's going to drive me nuts. So I decided, make sure I can replicate this on a scrap piece of wood before I actually try it on the guitar. Because once you drill, that's it, man. You can't fill it up. So I'm gonna order some new string ferrules, and I'm gonna just hold my breath and do it on that guitar. and hopefully it'll come out the way I want it. And then I'm off to the races. The rest is easy. Oh man. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vox. I should be putting some bow rosin on the top of that, right? I should get, that's one thing I always wanted to try is the violin bow. I gotta buy one. I gotta buy one of those things just to mess around with it, to do the Jimmy Page thing. Probably can buy one somewhere for not too much money. Try it out. Anyways, I'll show you once it's done, once everything's put together. I'll probably do a little play sample for you guys just so you can hear what it sounds like. There's a lot of these Dragon Telecasters floating around on the Chinese market, right? There's replicas that they make, but I don't trust them because, they're still about $400, $450, and I don't know how good they play. I'd rather just build my own. Plus, the whole point of this project was that, my nephew put some love and attention into painting it all up. So, once it's built, it'll be here, and it'll be a completed job, completed project, and I can't wait to finish it. I love this kind of stuff. I geek over this kind of stuff. You know me. John says, hot pink Seymour JB in the bridge of my black Strat. I colored it black with a Sharpie. I always wear a bit off and there's always a bit of pink showing, which is usually a sign of a good times to come. Well, I recently did a similar thing, John, with a Seymour Super Distortion, which come in cream only. I put it into my Kramer Beretta, the one that you see in my thumbnail for this video. And I just put a little vinyl, a black vinyl decal over it to make it look black because I wanted it to be black. And it turned out okay. It turned out pretty good. Gene says, I have seen many string through guitars where the ferrules are all over the place and not in a straight line. Yeah, me too, but it drives me crazy. I don't like to have that on my guitars. This is the first time I actually drilled. I'll be drilling the holes for the ferrules like that. So I just want to make sure I got it good before I actually try it on the real thing. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. It's late. It's 11:18. I got to get my beauty sleep. Look at me. I definitely need it. I hope you guys enjoyed this rare Saturday evening show. I will definitely do it again sometime. And so stay tuned for that if you prefer Saturdays. That's always a good time to jump in. Otherwise, I'll probably be going back to my usual Sunday schedule from here on in, at least for a little while. Get the usual people back on the chat. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And please stay tuned because next week it'll go back to Sunday morning. So if you prefer Sunday mornings, just set your alarm clock and it'll be business as usual. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, please just leave them in the chat. I'll get to them. I'll definitely get to them. And you can watch the reruns if you fell asleep and this is maybe too late for you. Dozed off somewhere in between, just watch the rerun of this one with all the questions and answers, and you can catch up on the rest. All right, guys, take it easy, have fun with your gear. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned to the channel. See you soon.